Okay, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something pretty incredible, a powerful, unfiltered signal that tells us where the economy is really heading. And believe me, it's hiding in a place most people just completely ignore, the quarterly earnings reports of your local regional bank. Let's get into it.
I mean, it's the big question, right? The one everyone's asking. You turn on the news, you get bombarded with all these conflicting reports and confusing data. One expert says we're booming, the next says we're on the brink of collapse. So, what's the real story? It's honestly getting harder and harder to tell.
And here's why it's so confusing. It feels like our traditional economic indicators, the tools we've always trusted, are just creating this thick data fog. The big official reports feel murky, and the headlines just don't seem to match what people are experiencing day to day. It's like our economic GPS is completely broken, and we're all just trying to find our way without a map.
So, how do we pierce through that fog? How do we find our bearings? Well, we have to start looking past the usual suspects. We've got to find the ground truth, the real story of what's happening, not on Wall Street, but on Main Street. And it turns out there's a surprisingly direct way to do just that.
The secret is hiding right here, in the financial statements of America's smaller regional banks. And look, this isn't just some interesting little detail. As the source material for this explainer argues, these reports might be the most honest, unfiltered, and this is the most important part, leading indicators we have left. They tell us where we're going, not just where we've been.
To really get why this is so powerful, you have to understand that there are basically two Wall Streets. One gives you this polished, carefully managed story, a facade, and the other gives you a raw, unfiltered forecast of what's actually coming down the pike.
And the difference between them is just night and day. On one side, you've got the behemoths, the huge global banks. Their business is so spread out across the world that any real pain in, say, downtown Dallas gets smoothed over and lost in the average. Their story is a curated narrative, which makes them a lagging indicator. But the locals, they're completely different. They're geographically concentrated. Their health is a direct mirror of Main Street reality, and that's what makes them such a powerful leading indicator.
You can think of it like this. Regional banks are the literal plumbing of the Main Street economy. They're not funding giant international mergers. No, they're giving loans to the local dentist to buy a new chair, to the construction firm putting up a new apartment building, and to the family that runs the restaurant down the street. So when that plumbing starts to get clogged, it's a sure sign that Main Street is in trouble.
Okay, so how do we actually read these signals? Well, it turns out there are three crucial metrics, often totally overlooked, hiding right there in plain sight in their reports. These are the signals that let you decode the distress long before it ever becomes a national headline. First on our list is something called commercial real estate loan loss provisions. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. This is just the money a bank proactively puts aside because it's expecting some of its loans on office buildings and shopping centers to go bad. This isn't just some boring accounting rule, it's the bank telling you it sees pain on the horizon.
And this is absolutely critical. This one metric is arguably the single most important hidden risk in the entire economy. See, the megabanks have diversified away from these smaller local commercial real estate loans, but the regional banks are tied to them completely. This is the first place the economic fog really lifts, and you can see trouble brewing in a specific city.
So, what does this look like in the real world? Well, if you see a regional bank suddenly jack up these provisions by 50% in a single quarter, that's not a guess. That is a 5-alarm fire. It's a direct signal that a local market is freezing up, that investment has stopped cold, and that a downtown area is in serious trouble.
All right, so that first metric tells you about incoming risk. Our second one, the loan-to-deposit ratio, or LDR, tells you about a bank's stability, how well it can handle that risk. It basically just measures how much money the bank has loaned out compared to the stable, everyday deposits it has from its customers. Now, when this number starts creeping up past 95%, that is a huge red flag. It means the bank is stretched dangerously thin. It doesn't have a big cushion of stable customer deposits, so it has to rely on riskier ways to fund itself. And that makes it incredibly vulnerable if its local economy starts to wobble. And our third and final signal gets us right down to the consumer level, net charge-offs on things like credit cards and auto loans. Now, we all hear about the national charge-off rate, but that number is a giant, diluted average. What we're looking for is the specific rate from a single regional bank, serving its own specific customers. Because that is the ground truth. It's like you're getting an unvarnished, confidential report straight from the local branch manager's desk. When a bank that only serves, say, the Cleveland metro area suddenly sees a spike in auto loan defaults, that's a direct, unfiltered signal that people in that specific area are losing jobs and their savings are running out.
So when you put these three pieces together, you get this dramatic contrast. It's the polished, public narrative of the megabank CEO versus the brutal internal truth from the regional bank's own credit officer.
So first, you get this. The CEO of a massive global bank gets on TV and speaks in these broad, optimistic strokes. You'll hear about a soft landing, the resilience of the global consumer, all of it. It's a confident, high-level story that's designed to calm everyone down.
But then, you have the reality. The regional chief credit officer, whose entire job depends on being brutally honest about risk, isn't talking about global trends. No, they're looking at spreadsheets and talking about specifics. The local developer who just missed a big payment, the rising number of bounced checks from small business customers, that language is way more predictive.
And that's really the whole key. Once you understand this difference, you now have a toolkit for piercing through all that economic fog we talked about and seeing the ground truth for yourself.
So this is it. This is your new economic toolkit. You're watching for a jump in commercial real estate loss provisions. You're checking for a loan-to-deposit ratio that's stretched way too thin, and you're looking for a spike in regional charge-offs. Put them together, and you have a powerful real-time dashboard for seeing what's really going on. Because what you're reading aren't just numbers on a page. This is the grassroots economic ledger of Main Street America. These reports don't just react to the news, they become the news. This is the data that so often calls the next major turn in the economy before almost anyone else sees it coming.
So the next time bank earnings season rolls around, you won't have to just take the polished story at face value. You'll know exactly where to look to find the real story. You can read the fine print now. So the question is, what's it going to tell you?